publicly.
Yes.
I want to ask you, switching gears somewhat, because you've also been covering Puerto Rico. And, of course, not nearly enough attention has been given to the devastation caused by the storm there, but also, more importantly, to the lack of urgency in terms of how the government has responded. Now, there has been some response. The officials in Puerto Rico say that it was maybe initially mischaracterized, that they had had no outreach whatsoever from the administration. But can you tell us where things stand? Are we seeing an aid package of any kind?
We saw, yes, we did yesterday, late yesterday. We saw the beginnings of an outline from the president, from OMB, of a $23 billion long-term aid package that I believe will be voted on in Congress in mid-November.
Is this just for Puerto Rico? Or also
no,
Harvey
this is Harvey and Florida. And
no. They were not going to help just Puerto Rico.
No, but this is the real
$23 billion. And how much will be allocated to Puerto Rico? Is it broken down in any way?
No, not yet. This remains to be seen, because you have certain programs like flood insurance that will, that need to be shored up significantly, but that you can't necessarily allocate. It's not all immediate debt relief or immediate hurricane relief and first aid. It's the longer term assurances, whether it's infrastructure rebuilding, but that aren't easily chopped up. This sort of federal funding, but it will be interesting. I think we expect it to pass. We expect it to receive wide support from both parties, and it significantly ramps up the amount of money that the federal government will be kicking into these three terrible disasters.
The president was obviously on the ground this week in Puerto Rico, and we were talking about those images where he's tossing the paper towels to people. But he came under criticism for more than just that.
That was just dopey.
Right.
But it was tacky, to say the least.
Sure.
But
tone deaf. And perhaps
he as he had been doing prior to the trip, but he did in person, again, bring up this question of the debt and emphasize fiscal responsibility, which he did not do in Texas. He did not do in Florida. Christina, why does he keep harping on the debt?
This is a very interesting thing, because as he was leaving Puerto Rico much later at night, he was speaking to Geraldo Rivera, and he said point blank that Puerto Rico's debt will be wiped out. And he was he said, your friends at Goldman Sachs, I don't know who it is who holds this debt, but they're not going to get repaid. And we're just going to have to wipe it out. And so this was this took markets by the shocked markets. It sent Puerto Rican debt bonds, the bond market for Puerto Rican debt, reeling. And Puerto Rico has already moved into a sort of a bankruptcy to try to restructure its billions of dollars in debt. And the White House and the administration spent much of yesterday mopping up Trump's comments and making it very clear to bondholders that Puerto Rico's debt would not be, quote, wiped out, that they would still move through legal channels. There's no indication that there's a legal way for the government to simply basically tell all these bondholders of Puerto Rican debt to shove off. That's just but then if you think about it, it's easy for Trump to say. He liked, at the time he said it, he seemed to like the feeling of it. He liked to kind of stick it in the eye of the bankers, was what you got from his tone. And in his career as a developer, frankly, I think he's never been much of a friend of creditors.
Yeah,
he's carried a lot of debt for a lot of his life.
But isn't it ironic that this person who himself has, had a record of bankruptcy in his business is out here, of all times too, when we're talking about U.S. citizens, mind you, who are just, again, without food, without water, without medication, their homes have been destroyed. People are dying. First
of all, you have to understand that Donald Trump doesn't realize that Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
He's an island
he
surrounded by water, big water, ocean
goodness.
water.
Ocean water.
But there's a sense that he views them as second-class citizens. You've seen the San Juan mayor really, really go after him, and he attacked her, of course, because he must. He also, while he was there, said they should be proud because they had only had 16 deaths. That's been revised upward to more than 32. We don't even know the numbers because they hadn't updated the death toll in a week because they have no idea. It's utter chaos. Why can't he just go there and do what he needs to do?
This comes back to his personality and his inability often to take instruction or cues from his staff. They put him in, frankly, situations that don't play to his strengths.
Do you think that he views Puerto Ricans as American citizens?
No.
I do. Yeah, I do. I do.
No,
Okay.
there's
Absolutely.
no way. I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't. I mean, you just look at how he talks about the victims in Puerto Rico versus the ones in Texas or Florida with Harvey and Irma. Like the way that he went there to them and said, "Oh, you should be lucky you didn't get a real catastrophe like one of those ones that hit us, like Katrina."
But I think he was just thinking right then in terms of the death toll, and yes, it was a foot in mouth. Kind of a not typical, but maybe typical Trump comment.
I'd say typical.
I will say that one thing is accurate, that the first time he went to Texas, he was also tone deaf and lacked empathy.
When he said, "Look at that crowd," thanks for coming out.
And then he had to go back,
right?
And then he had to roll up his sleeves,
yep.
And then he had to actually look
and I think there was
because Mike Pence showed him up.
Yeah,
was like carrying
the
pieces
Pence
of wood and
the Pence sort of photo op.
It's just the dumbest. Guy.
But there was a moment. That I think was underappreciated from his trip to Puerto Rico when he met with some people whose houses had been damaged or destroyed. And that, if I had been his staff, that is the moment that I would have wanted on camera so he can connect with people. He is who he is. He shows no signs of changing. He does not have a very high emotional ability to connect with suffering. But you should have heard as he was speaking to these people about the rebuilding of their house, he could speak to them as a builder. And he actually did connect.
Sure.
And
for like this moment. Yeah.
It was, but I mean, an event like a trip to visit victims of a storm is just a series of moments, whoever the president is.
Man, it's like, can't believe you're saying this about president visiting storm-ravaged territory, but they should like limit his visit to like 45 minutes.
Literally.
Go see these people
Literally.
and get out. Don't sit in the round table.
Don't throw paper goods at them.
Well, don't sit around with local officials and like do a talk about what they need and what your perception is.
Knowing who the president is, where you take him is to speak to people about rebuilding. Where you do not perhaps take him is to a church to hand out aid. So neither of those, he's not especially religious, and he doesn't especially connect with people who suffer. So, but that whole situation, if I had been on his staff, I would have said this is a recipe for a bad photo op, and that's exactly what we got.
I understand the building perspective, and it makes a lot of sense. It's a way to identify, but it needs to be said that Donald Trump still has a problem with the other. The concept of the other. Okay, whether it's black people, whether it's Latinos, any non-whites, really, in most cases, and in a lot of cases, poor people. Donald Trump cannot identify with the other.
Absolutely. So if you're working for the White House, you put him in situations with people who he can identify with.
My biggest takeaway from the whole Puerto Rico thing, I know we got a break, but my biggest takeaway was when he went on Twitter and said, "These people want something for nothing." Or they want everything. They want to be taken care of. They want everything taken care of for them. Like they have no roads, they have no electricity, they have no running water, they don't have food to eat, but they want everything done for them. And like to be the president of everybody,
right? And
to say that.
I mean, at that point, he felt emotionally that he was simply defending himself against criticism.
I know.
Yeah.
But it's also just like wholly inappropriate.
Yeah.
I think.
Wrong moment, wrong statement.
Sure.
Well, Christina, thank you so much for breaking this all down with us. Fascinating conversation. Really great to see you.
Great to see you
in
too.
person. I hope your toddler